The Blindside Podcast is not associated or affiliated with my current employers and is voluntarily recorded and produced on my own time. This is Blind Meadow Gamer, and you're listening to another episode of the Blindside Podcast. Available on Spotify and all podcasting platforms with the exclusion of Apple and Stitcher. Be sure to follow us so you will not miss a single episode. Yo, what is up, everybody? It is time for another episode of the Blindside Podcast. I'm your host, Blind Meadow Gamer, along with the lovely and vivacious Kaira Supersayan. What's up, Kaira?
Not much, Blind. It's just a lazy Sunday around here. The dog's napping, the cat's napping, so we've got furry friends today.
Nice. Today, our episode, as always, we agree with do what we're going to say. It is the spooky season. It is time for our spooky episode revolving around Halloween candy. Is that not right, Kaira?
That's right. We may even throw in a couple of scary episodes to satisfy Blind's horror insatiableness.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in this one, we're going to talk about our favorite Halloween candies, stories about trick-or-treating, etc.
Maybe even one scary story, since it does relate to Halloween trick-or-treating on my end.
Right. So, do you have any type of scary, particular Halloween candies that you remember when you were younger that you loved?
Oh gosh, it was always Tootsie Rolls and Tootsie Pops. Those were one of my safe candies. Growing up. As for those of you who don't know, from a young age, little Kaira was diagnosed with a peanut allergy, and it didn't take much for me to get sick if I ate the wrong food. So anytime anything Tootsie Roll brand came into the Halloween buckets, Mom would be like, "Okay, you give that to your sister, and you give her all your Reese's."
Hey, nothing wrong with Tootsie Rolls. Okay, my favorite Halloween candy, and it still is, Reese's. Although now I prefer, since Blind Meadow Gamer gives up sugar for health reasons, sugar-free Reese's would be my new favorite Halloween.
I actually have tasted something very similar to Reese's. Trader Joe's actually sells their own version of Reese's made with sunflower seed spread, which is an alternative to peanut butter. First time I tasted one from Trader Joe's, I'm like, am I eating the right food? This tastes like peanut butter.
No, I've never had it. They're called Sun Cups. I've never had one. I've wanted to try one for a while.
I will have to have my mom pick up 2 the next time we go to Trader Joe's, because they are so good, especially if you freeze them. Then you get the perfect balance of chocolate and saltiness from the sun butter. Oh my gosh, perfect salty sweet snack.
All right, so okay, now the theme of our episode is Halloween adventures. Kaira, would you like to kick us off with some of your Halloween adventures of trick-or-treating?
The one that immediately comes to mind is Halloween of 1999, maybe 2000. No, this would have been Halloween of 2000. That's right, because I was 7 at the time. And it was all week long. Nickelodeon was airing Halloween episodes, and a new Halloween special was supposed to debut on Halloween, but it wasn't a cartoon. It was going to be a true crime special by Nick News. So my sister and I begged our mom to record the VCR while we went out trick-or-treating, because, my mom was single, and we came from a blended family at this point. My parents had been had been divorced for a year at this point. So Mom agrees. So my sister and I come back from trick-or-treating, and we pop in the VHS tape that had recorded. It was not a true crime story. It was SpongeBob, a new Halloween special. And my sister's like, okay, it's SpongeBob, I'll watch it. And then then the sister episode, which for those of you guys don't know is what they call the B-side of a cartoon. For those 22-minute episodes, and it was this really interesting episode I'd never seen before. It was called "I Was a Teenage Gary." For those of you scary movie fans, that is a reference to two different movies. I Was a Teenage Werewolf, the first werewolf movie of the 1950s, and An American Werewolf in London, which is a downright terrifying, revolutionary, scary movie that to this day I have not seen because
I have not seen that either. Now, I heard American Werewolf in Paris has a good song on it by Bush. The soundtrack has a song by Bush.
You don't want to watch American Werewolf in Paris? It's a lackluster sequel to An American Werewolf in London.
Then I'm more worried about the soundtrack.
Crazy. Anyway, the point is, I Was a Teenage Gary is not something you want to watch on Halloween night. It gave me nightmares for weeks. And to this day, the transformation scene of SpongeBob turning into a snail is so downright terrifying. Every time it pops up on YouTube, I have to mute it because I cannot stand it. It freaks me out. I am 30 years old and I am still terrified of one sponge getting turned into one snail. It's got a great ending. It's got a great plot. And it's downright terrifying. If you want a fright on Halloween night, watch it. But if you're like me, a wimpy little 7-year-old at the time, don't watch it on Halloween night because it's going to keep you up for weeks.
All right, now, okay, I'll tell you about one of my favorite Halloween shows before we get into the trick or treating. One of my favorite Halloween shows, aside from the Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors, I love those. Those are awesome.
Great anthology series, and I don't normally like anthology, so that's a statement coming from me.
So I like, by the way, a quick shout out to YouTube channel Top Fives for their October content. It's going to be coming up all month long, spooky stuff. I like really scary, paranormal, aliens type stuff. Now, when I was a young blind metal gamer, I'm sure all you 80s and 90s kids remember this. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh, yes, I remember that. There is one episode in particular that scares me, and I will see where this conversation goes in a minute.
Yes. What I liked about Are You Afraid of the Dark, they were around a campfire, they told stories. And there was one about this demon named Golf.
Oh.
He was a mean bastard. He basically, I think this is the one that Kaira was referring to that freaked her out.
Mm-hmm.
The one about the Indian burial ground.
Oh, yeah, the swimming pool episode. My sister and I were too scared to get into our grandparents' swimming pool for a week, and my mom couldn't figure it out until my sister was like, well, we have to tell her now. Thanks a lot, Kelsey. Oh, Kaira.
But yeah, I think that's the one that they had to use the chlorine to kill the monster. And
not just chlorine, a whole bunch of pool chemicals.
Yeah, but it did him in. Anyway, okay, back to trick-or-treating and to, Halloween candy and sweets.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any trick-or-treat stories about going around the neighborhood and what it was like for you?
Halloween was always interesting because by the time I was old enough to remember trick-or-treating, my parents were already divorced. I remember one year my grandparents tried to hand out candy, but my neighborhood that I grew up in was not very popular with trick-or-treaters. So you'd have to go into the other subdivisions that surrounded my neighborhood to go trick-or-treating to get your haul candy. So every year we'd go to my grandparents first because they were right next door and get our candy from them. Mm-hmm. Then we'd turn on the front porch lights at my mother's, and we'd leave a bowl of candy out with a note saying, "Please take one or two pieces, because there was nobody around to answer the door at our house because single mom, taking two kids out trick or treat. Well, usually three kids out trick or treating because my cousin would always come with us. And so, we'd always have the three of us would always have these interesting costumes. My cousin was a skeleton, wore the same wore the same skeleton costume 3 years in a row until he outgrew it. Then he upgraded to this very creepy monster mask. It was like this skeleton with bug eyes, and it was that looked like it was out of the 1800s or something. It was very interesting. It freaked me out. And at the end, before the night ended, we would always drive over to my dad's house where my stepmother would always be dressed up and have this gigantic cauldron filled to the brim with Halloween goodie bags. She'd always set aside a special bag for me filled with safe candies for me to eat. And so, Halloween usually involved at least 4 neighborhoods, because there were 3 in particular you could walk about in my mom's neighborhood. And then we'd go over to my dad's and walk his street for a while. Dad would be like, my mom and dad would sometimes get into arguments about whether my sister and I could go walk his neighborhood and go trick-or-treating there too. And that would usually lead to a bunch of protests between me and my sister. So my mom would usually lament and be like, all right, for at least half an hour. So we'd usually, by the end of the night, we'd usually hit up at least 6 neighborhoods, which was pretty good. And we'd have our buckets I cannot remember a single year our buckets were not filled to the brim with candy.
Hey, you have plenty of snacks for the holiday, for the cold weather coming up. And
oh no, my sister and I were candy hounds. Our candy would be gone within days.
Oh no! Now for me, Blind Metal Gamer,
I didn't get to finish. There's one last thing. And then the Halloween always ended by my sister and I going into my mom's kitchen, sitting in front of the washer and dryer. And because our laundry room was also our kitchen. And we'd dump out the candy. Mom would be like, all right, you girls trade what candies you don't want and can't eat to each other. So that's how Halloween always ended. And Mom would occasionally take stuff for herself. But that was usually because it was something neither my sister or myself wanted. And it would often be something I couldn't eat because it was handmade.
But she had to get hers in too, so.
It was usually dark chocolate that my sister and I didn't care for when we were kids.
Okay, so on my end of the spectrum, as far as trick-or-treating, from a blind child's perspective, a younger Blind Metal Gamer, I remember about the same situation. We're a little different. I went to the school for the blind, and I lived there, so we had activities on campus for Halloween. We would all dress up, and they would have haunted houses for us and apple bobbing, and
I remember that kind of stuff from when I was in trade school.
I remember when one year they took everybody trick-or-treating, right?
Right.
And we're all thinking, yeah, Halloween candy. We didn't get to eat that too quick. There was a catch. They took the candy to be x-rayed for unsafe materials, and we didn't get it back.
Oh, jeez. That's just the adults' way of saying you don't get the candy, we do.
Yeah, they got to basically, I think it was a show about candy safety or something. I don't know.
Well, to be fair, I did see on the news one year that where this woman in our state, a few towns away, found a sewing needle in her child's Hershey bar.
Yeah, you got to be careful. So definitely got to be careful about that. And, as for, I would go home on, the weekends that they would have trick-or-treating in my hometown for Halloween, and I would hit up the neighborhood, and, just my bucket would be filled to the brim with candy.
Yeah, I actually had 2 Halloween buckets growing up. I had a purple one at Dad's and a traditional orange one at Mom's. So that was interesting. And while we're on the note of Halloween, I will tell you, when young Kaira was little and couldn't remember Halloween, my very first Halloween in what used to be my hometown, which was before we moved to where I am now, it got so cold, and where Brian and I are from, it's known to get cold and rainy on Halloween. Not that year. Good old 1993, it snowed the day before Halloween. And the next day there was snow on our jack-o'-lantern.
Oh man, that must have been Old Man Winter or Sub-Zero trolling you.
As they say about our area, bipolar Mother Nature.
Yeah, that too. So
No offense to anyone who's bipolar. That's just an old saying that we like to say in our area.
yeah, that's just an old proverb. But anyway, um, so I would get lots of candy, from the neighborhood, and then I also have a couple of stories I'd like to share about Halloween at the school, and then what it was like giving candy out because I kind of got to experience from both sides of the coin.
I've actually got to experience handing candy out at in our community as well as an adult, so that should be interesting.
So okay, as you know, I lived at the school on campus during the week. I would go home on the weekends, so it
Mm-hmm.
was not a stay 24-hour day, 7-day a week deal. At Halloween at the school, it was very, very, like I said, they had haunted houses, apple bobbing, dances.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one year, it was 1997, I
Mm-hmm.
had this homework I had to do, right? I had a teacher. Now
Right.
I'm going to name drop Miss Creasy if you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
You're involved in the story, so here we go.
Oh boy.
Name Mrs. Creasy. And Mrs. Creasy, very, very good teacher. But when it came to homework and assignments, she was strict.
I had
Very
plenty of
strict
teachers
on
like
that.
that.
So I'm freaking out. Oh God, I have an assignment I got to get done, but I got to dance. Oh God, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I had to crisscross between the dance and getting this assignment printed. Luckily, I got everything worked out and got to go and get everything printed and turned in or whatever.
Yeah.
But I freaked out for a minute. It was on Halloween night, so they had this particular night a dance with black lights, good music, hip hop, and they didn't have any. Well, they may have had Guns N' Roses, but no like KK's, no metal that I normally associate with now.
I can't imagine at a school dance there would be much metal.
Well, there could have been. There was workarounds. As long as the music had no profanity, it was good to go.
Yeah.
Now, if it was like Disturbed or something explicit,
Yeah.
no. But anyway, so I got all that done, and the costume for that year, I was the Grim Reaper.
Nice.
I had this dark hood over my face and this blood red costume,
Yeah. Did you have a scythe?
No, I think I was the Grim Reaper's assistant, I think, is what it was
Oh, that
called.
makes more sense because if you were the actual Grim Reaper,
I
you
would
could have
have the
fashioned
scythe
your.
and.
If you were the actual, here's a fun idea. If you ever did that costume and were the actual Grim Reaper, you could fasten one of your walking poles
As a
into a
scythe.
into a scythe.
Okay, you're giving me ideas.
Hey, you should have thought of that yourself, silly.
Okay, so then I get as time passes, I get older. I didn't want to give out candy
Mm-hmm.
when I was a teenager, I didn't want to go around getting candy. Rather,
Mm-hmm.
I was too old. The age limit. I'd reached the age limit to do that, and I had a certain event in my life that had forever changed my life for the better.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, it was around Halloween time when it happened.
Oh
And,
no.
and I said, Mom, I want to give out candy this year. Well, no, it was a good event. I
Mm-hmm.
just said, Mom, I want to give out candy this year. I want to see what it's like to hand it out and
Mm-hmm.
not go around getting it. I want to give it. And she said, okay. And so I sat out front with my orange bowl of candy and I handed it out to the trick or treaters. And,
Yeah.
that lasted for several years. I even remember one year I was fresh out of school. I had graduated and I was giving out candy at the door. Had I made a mix CD of just different video game music.
Mm-hmm.
A cover of Planet Caravan by Pantera, R.I.P. Dimebag and Vinnie Paul. I had to throw that
Yeah.
in there. And I remember this one little smart ass kid comes
Mm-hmm.
up to the door.
Yeah.
Are you handicapped? What was that
Oh,
now? The kid's mother corrected him immediately, so he got immediate correction.
that's good.
So, yeah, I've experienced both giving and getting candy on Halloween. What about you, Kyra?
I actually do that myself. When I was I'd say 15. I took on the mantle of handing out the candy. My mom and I actually just about had a big argument one year because she's like, "You're a teenager. You can't hand out. You can't go trick or treating anymore." So I had to stop, and so then we moved after my last Halloween. I mean, the last Halloween I trick or treated was my freshman year in high school, and then we moved. So by 16, I was transitioning to our new house in a nice subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
I got overwhelmed with the amount of trick or treaters, and like I mentioned earlier, if you know anything about our area, it gets freaking cold on Halloween. So I'd have to sit out in a chair on the front porch and have a blanket around me while I was dressed up in a costume because it got so cold. So and then after college and trade school, where I got to experience Halloween parties and all that stuff, I started handing out candy for the community instead of doing it at home because I'm like, we get overwhelmed with the candy at home. I might as well just do it in the community where I can accommodate more people. And so when I do that, I fashion my gloves so that I don't contaminate my hands with something I'm allergic to, and it gives me a neat chance to connect with people. Sometimes, because I'll see disabled people, I'll see people with food allergies, and so sometimes I'll get a parent who says, "Oh, she's got a food allergy. Can you?" I'm like, I understand. I have already picked, and I give them a Tootsie Roll or Tootsie Pop. And this year, it's actually turning into something different. This year, I am putting together a selfie station instead of handing out candy because the way the community hands out candy has changed in the last couple of years.
Right.
So now, instead of handing out candy, I am making a selfie station. So this will bring Kaira back to her art roots from college, and so it'll be a neat way for me to hone my skills. I'm gonna get some stuff from Dollar Tree and Michael's and just go to town.
Now, me, I would too be involved with the community involvement, but this year, the date that it falls on, it's going to conflict with, I'll just say non-podcasting related activities. So,
Yeah, I understand.
maybe 2024, we'll see what happens.
Maybe we can do it together next year.
Maybe. But yeah, Halloween, very fun, very awesome. Kyra, do you have any funny Halloween adventures that you went on that you may have gotten freaked out, like at like a haunted house or?
Oh man, my first experience with a haunted house was memorable. Like that was the downright most terrifying haunted house I've ever been to, and apparently they had this. I don't remember this because I remember my mother talking about it, and apparently the workers of the haunted house would lurk around the parents and kids while they were waiting in line to get in, so they could get information on the kids to scare them. So between the chainsaws, the clowns, and everything else, they'd be like, Kyra, 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 Kyra. That would freak out every little kid in the haunted house immediately. And they'd run out crying for their moms and dads. And oh my gosh. It took me a long time to get over haunted houses.
All right. Now, I have a couple of stories about haunted houses. The first being, I was again at the school. And we would always go to the haunted house at the Lions Club that they would put on. And this haunted house had a pretty cool intro. Mm-hmm. It had a big dragon that would open up its mouth and take a big bite as you went in.
Yeah.
And there were years I couldn't go through it because it would freak me out. The one year I went through the whole thing, they were all praised, yeah, good job. And then we had haunted houses at the school, like out by the woods. We
had them in trade school too. They'd set up the gymnasium for haunted houses. That's what got me over haunted houses was trade school.
So we did that. And one year, it was my junior. It was right before I left. Mm-hmm. We had a haunted house in the recreation building for all the other, dorms to go through. Mm-hmm. And I remember the guide was dressed up as a daisy.
Yeah.
And by the way, shout out to Stephanie Brown Davis. She was the guide that year.
Oh.
Yep. And I was the scary monster that would pop out and, like
Oh,
that.
jeez.
And I scared the, you know, little kids. It was all in fun.
Going back to scary media, I also remember this was not Halloween, but this is on topic. Um, Blind did not watch this show because Are You Afraid of the Dark was inferior. Goosebumps was gaining popularity on TV when I was a kid. They would show reruns of it on Cartoon Network at Halloween every year.
Mm-hmm.
So one year, when I was in the after school program sponsored by our local YMCA, which unfortunately is now defunct. Thanks a lot, city government. Sorry, that's a tirade.
Mm-hmm.
And so one night they showed us a scary Goosebumps episode, and I had seen a couple of them. I thought, okay, this can't be that bad, right? No, it was bad. It was a two-parter called Night of the Living Dummy 3. And for those of you who've seen that episode, you'll know why I got so freaked out. We got through the first half, and I go up to the counselor who's in charge of us that day, and I said, Mr. So-and-so, I can't finish this episode. I'm freaked out. The next week, we got Scooby-Doo, and I'm like, why are you watching Scooby-Doo? What happened to Goosebumps? Let's just say your old girl Kaira got so freaked out that they had to blacklist Goosebumps for the remainder of the year for all the kids, not just the little kids, but the big kids like me too.
Wow, I remember.
And here's the kicker: this past March at Comic-Con, I met the voice actor for Slappy the Dummy, me from Goosebumps, and I tell who has an uncanny resemblance to the dummy. They apparently used his face to make the dummy, which is creepy as heck. And I tell him the story, and he's like, oh my gosh, I love that. That's the purpose of the show. If you did that.
Hey, I've got kind of a funny story before we do our final thoughts.
Okay.
About media, and I do remember Goosebumps. I remember with one time I was in Boy Scouts, and Goosebumps was inferior. It was just new, and we were all wanting to watch it. So we had a Boy Scout. It was supposed to be a Boy Scout meeting, and what do? We watched Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Good times. Those are the KSB good times.
Yeah.
That which I'm gonna get back with my partner on those at some point. We just gotta figure out when to get in here and record them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember a lot of great times and great experiences.
Yeah, but I'll never forget though that one Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. That the Indian graveyard pool episode that freaked me out. But nothing, and I mean nothing, to me is more terrifying than I Was a Teenage Gary. That episode, y'all. If you guys want to fright this Halloween, and you don't want a scary movie, you want something lighthearted, go watch the episode of SpongeBob. You will never look at SpongeBob the same or Gary the same way again.
All right, if you want a frightening show, The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror is not really frightening, but it's more. It's good to watch. It's also top fives all October long is going to be having paranormal content.
You got to name your favorite Treehouse of Horror though, so the people know where to start off with.
Start off with the very first one.
The what? Oh yes, Lisa's retelling of the Raven is the highlight of that episode. I actually need to catch up on. I'm actually on season 18 of The Simpsons as we speak. And every October I go into Disney Plus and I rewatch all of the Treehouse of Horrors in order until I'm at the current season. It's awesome.
Nice. I'm gonna be, as far as Netflix, for you Netflix folks, I would say The Unexplained. They just launched a new documentary series about UFOs.
And as much as I hate saying this, because I would not recommend this to anyone, but if you want something that'll chill your spine indefinitely, the Dahmer series, as inaccurate as it can be.
Yeah, Dahmer is
out.
It is insane.
don't watch it alone though. Watch it with a friend for God's sake, so that both of you can suffer. But keep a bucket nearby because I've heard people got sick watching it. I mean, if it's anything like me with scary books, it'll make you ill.
Let me let you on a little secret, Kaira.
What?
Your boy Blind Metal Gamer didn't throw up once he was snacking all the way through that bad boy.
Well, you're not. You are not like most people when it comes to that stuff, considering all the metal you listen to.
But to be serious, Dahmer, it's a good show on Netflix. And if you use the audio description, you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
For those who are blind or visually impaired.
Yeah.
You'll get a lot more out of it with the audio. But yeah, those are some good shows for you to watch on Netflix or Disney Plus.
And I almost forgot a good movie, which is something I mentioned earlier. American Werewolf in London revolutionized the scary movie industry before, and it's not as freaky as The Exorcist, which is also good. But those are also two movies that your girl Kaira has blacklisted because Kaira is a big chicken.
All right, now 2 good Halloween movies that I would recommend would be. I know it's not a horror movie, but it's a superhero movie. The 3 Blade movies, the Blade trilogy.
Oh yeah, my parents wouldn't let me watch any of them because I wanted to watch them because I saw Blade appear in Spider-Man the animated series. I'm like, well, what can be so bad about that? My dad's like, you're not watching an R-rated horror movie at 15 years old. That was the end of that conversation.
Yeah, and the Blade trilogy is good. That's what I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the gaming aspect,
Silent Hill 2 I would definitely recommend for playing.
Castlevania, any Castlevania game I'm playing.
Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah, Wolfenstein, Doom, the new Dooms.
The original Mortal Kombat, the SNES edition, because as you guys know, that's the gory version.
Mortal Kombat 1 that just came out not too long ago, just last month.
Grabbed by the Ghoulies for the original Xbox. Interesting zombie apocalypse film. Got one heck of an ending. And it's mostly easy to play, but it's got some levels that are gonna make you throw your controller against the wall.
And my final recommendation for Halloween related games would be any good horror game that's out there. I would say the Amnesia games.
I still got to go Silent Hill 2. That game is revolutionary.
Oh, you know they're remaking that, right?
I'm not. They've already done the first Silent Hill, so they're working on the original trilogy.
They're remaking Silent Hill 2. Yeah, go with that. And any of the games that we suggested would be good Halloween plays or movies that we want.
Another one. It's challenging, and you're gonna scream at your TV the whole time. Toonenstein, which is a Tiny Toons Adventure Elvira spinoff. No, Elmira. I said the wrong name.
Elmira, yeah.
But it's so creepy and it makes you want to puke the whole time. But it's geared for little kids. It's hilariously stupid and insanely difficult.
I would say one more for me would be the new the Spider-Man games that are out. Those because we got Spider-Man 2 coming out. So all right, it's been a pretty good episode, Kaira, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it has been, and amazingly enough, we have not woken up the fur pets.
No, we have not. So, with that being said, do you have any final thoughts before we end our recording today?
I just want to say, I forgot to mention, Halloween's especially nostalgic because we celebrated a beloved pet's birthday in my family for almost 14 years. So, Halloween gets me sentimental. So if I get sad this time of year, now people know why. But, it's all fun. It's nostalgia. It's fun to relive your childhood, talk about those old memories, and relive your beloved pets.
Oh, yeah. I do want to wish everybody a happy Halloween. I hope everybody stays warm and safe. And I hope that everybody, always practice safe trick-or-treating practices.
And don't take any partially open candies. It's not safe.
No, don't. If it's partially open and if you're in doubt, throw it out.
Yeah, seriously. If you're in doubt, have your parents look at it. Just don't let them take all your candy in the process. That's what some parents like to do.
Parent, relative, or adult you're trick-or-treating with.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that being said, I want to wish everybody a happy and safe Halloween. And Kaira, I will talk to you on the next episode in November when the temperatures will be colder and the days will be shorter. Do you want to tell them what's coming up in November?
Thanksgiving traditions and beloved holiday recipes.
Yes, that's coming up
I've got
next.
some good ones. Stuff like pumpkin pie, pecan pie, and some unfortunately sad stuff for your girl Kaira. But that's all for another episode.
Yep, that's all coming up next time on the Blindside Podcast. So until next time, for Kaira Supersayan, I've been your host, Blind Metal Gamer, saying so long, everyone.
And I'm Kaira Supersayan, saying stay golden, y'all.
And peace out. Thank you for listening. This has been another episode of the Blindside Podcast. You can find the Blindside Podcast on a plethora of platforms, including Spotify, YouTube, Pocket Cast, Castbox, TuneIn Radio, and much more. Be sure to follow on Spotify so you will not miss a single episode.